Hi, everyone. Thrilled to be here. Thank you so much. Incredibly inspiring group to be part of, so thank you for having me. When we talk about carbon these days, think about it. It's the #1 impediment to human growth. It's the biggest challenge for our future, but this is how we see it, which is actually a huge challenge for humans because, as they say, seeing is believing. So I started thinking to myself, well, what if we could actually see carbon? Right? We lost the evolutionary lottery. We can't actually sense it. But if we could, it might look something like this. And I started making other images about imagining carbon at its very source. Right? What if you could actually see, in some distant future, where these emissions are actually coming from so we could stop them? And what if in that future we could actually tell people today what it is that they need to do to make that future better? Now, my background is actually in museum experience design. The firm that I built designed the 9/11 Memorial Museum. I spent 8 years on this project. Planet Word, a new museum of words and languages in Washington, D.C., filled with wonder and new technologies. We have lots of projects that deal with play in interesting ways. This we built for Manchester United in China. It's a new immersive play experience concept that we're going to be applying to climate. Or this project, Greenwood Rising, which is the Tulsa Race Massacre Museum. And as part of this project in particular, we started thinking about what's often called the call to action. Right? This is the moment at the end where, having seen something and felt something and been moved to action, we're able to wind people up and sort of point them in a direction of where to make productive use of that energy. And in this case, because people are adding their own message, they're actually able to make more impact. Now, this is particularly important now that I'm starting to do self-initiated projects around climate because of this strange fact. So this is the IRA, this is the so-called climate bill, our big opportunity to decarbonize America. But it's a little weird if you followed it, right? The estimates are anywhere from 300 billion to 1.2 trillion. And that is really strange and unusual. But that's specifically because tax credits and grants require voluntary adoption. So when you let that sink in, you start to recognize that every school, every hospital, every business, every church, every local government is going to have to voluntarily decarbonize. Right? They're going to have to raise their hand and say, yes, I want to do the work, and yes, I also want to put in the additional money to make that happen. Now, we have some theories on how that happens. This is the so-called adoption curve that's very famous in Silicon Valley. And when you look at it, these folks here, the early adopters, which is frankly all of us, the climate folks, we have been reached by the messaging thus far. We've maybe calculated our carbon footprint or been galvanized into action. That said, these folks are the ones we need to actually reach now. Right? This is the early majority. This is my audience that I'm hoping to touch on. Now, when you talk to behavioral scientists, there are two things you need to do in order for people to change behavior. Number one is the big why. Why should I make change? Right? And when you look at this, these are the folks that we're trying to reach, and they're starting to get onto the why, as you can see here. 2/3 of them, the majority of America, are already worried about climate. The problem is they don't talk about it, and they definitely don't do anything about it. Now, the why has already been achieved because of this: extreme weather. Right? Inconvenient Truth tried to convince us this was going to happen, and now, this is just a couple months ago in my native New York, it's real. Everyone knows it's real. The second thing that they tell you is that you need a path to what's called efficacy. You need to have a change that will actually make impact. And honestly, I think that is where we have fallen down. Because when we Google in the middle of the night because the sky is orange or because the mudslides have taken something precious from us, the top 10 hits are all carbon footprint. This is you as an individual and you as a consumer. And so what I started doing was gathering together all the things that you can do as members of communities, changing the systems that you're part of, right? So this is all of these different Google searches, drawdown labs, PDFs that I personally and a bunch of people have made our way through. So these are the 6 things you would actually do to decarbonize K through 12 schools. And then we also gathered together case studies of individuals who have made changes around that. Plus, we have a chatbot where you can put in a paragraph about yourself, and it'll pull out all the categories where you can make change. Once you make a commitment to change, you can then step into the future. So this is an immersive experience that we've been prototyping at my studio in Lower Manhattan. And when you step into the future, it's not a good future or a bad future, and this is another cognitive blind spot we're trying to seal. It's a conditional future. It can be different depending on our actions. And as more people take actions, the temperature gets lower and the future gets better. So the idea is to build these, partner with different venues or different locations, different maybe corporations or businesses or local governments, cities or individual counties, places that want to catalyze action and draw attention to the productive things that we can all do, whether it's policies, whether it's new ways of working together, whether it's, again, changing our schools or universities or hospitals. All of these systems need to galvanize both their customers as well as their constituents in order to take action, to start this decarbonization process on a mass scale. And that's really what this is trying to do, is make this emotional moment of attention that can then bring forward all the changes themselves. This is a much lower fi version. This we actually launched at the Coal and Ice Show in New York City at the Asia Society. So it has all of these different cards for the different communities that you can be part of. Right, so when you look at it, this is hospitals, for example. I made my way through 200 pages of a National Academy of Sciences deck to pull out these 11 points. Right? Or whether it's agriculture, or whether it's procurement, or whether it is creative arts, or whether it's indigenous communities, or whether it's mangroves. The point is there are customized levers just for you in every version of you, where you can make a much, much bigger impact than just you as an individual. Because you can do something within a community, talk about it, share about it, and be proud of it. And particularly, we're looking for partnerships in all of these different locations. So online is free. We'd love to partner with people who want to use this as a call to action for their documentaries or their films, news outlets, public spaces, partnerships, as well as the immersives. But what I find most inspiring is this idea of future makers. So these are the individuals. Again, it's amazing that you all are dedicating your lives to climate, but these are the folks who are not. Right? These are teachers who are not quitting their day jobs. This is an amazing artist here in Miami. Each and every one of us is an artist. Walk away knowing that you're an artist, Xavier Cortada. We really have to, as a union, help teachers, help students respond to the moment. This is Michael Kuzic, obviously in Boston. This is the Reverend Canon Sally J. Bingham. Climate change is probably the most moral issue of our time. Or Glenn Elzingo says, put your heart and soul into the relationship with the landscape. Right now we've lost it, but we can rebuild it. And I'll leave with this final quote, which I actually got from a colleague, Jonathan, from Undaunted K through 12. And this is what I find inspiring most of all about this conference. He was saying, you know, oftentimes people in climate think to themselves, oh, how is it that at this moment I'm watching all of these things crashing around me, all of these things that are so problematic, etc. But there's also another way to think about it. Maybe we were born at the right time. Maybe this is actually the exact challenge that we were brought here to together solve. And with that, I will say thank you so much. I appreciate it.